Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Tuesday, January 19th edition of the MMAOB Daily Podcast. I'm your host, as always, Adam Martin. And on this Tuesday edition of the podcast, joined by my good buddy here, the co-host of the MMAOB Daily Podcast for Tuesdays, Mr. Cole Shelton. How's it going, Cole?
I'm doing well, man. How are you?
I'm great. And I'll see a lot of you this week, Cole. We have two cards this week. So me and Cole will be breaking down tomorrow, Wednesday, the Chiesa Magny card today. And then on Thursday, 10 a.m., I guess we'll do a quick recap, Cole, of what happens. But honestly, like I feel like we would better off sort of just breaking down that whole card on Thursday. So most of the show will be that breakdown for UFC 257. But I do probably want to talk about like at least the main event on Thursday. But just so people know, if they're wondering where like the recap comes on Thursday, we're gonna try to stick to the full preview. I want to give a full hour for the previews of this year. That's why I have a show on Monday now with Marcel or whoever, by myself even, or a different guest, just recapping the fights of the weekend. But I think we should get right into it, Cole. So just to recap, the last card, 6-4 and 5-5, I think for you, Cole. 5-5, is that right? Yeah. So first card of the year, and there was a lot of upsets. So kind of a tough card to pick, honestly. But I'm excited to talk about this one. I mean, listen. It's not the best card. Like, let's be completely honest, Cole, it really isn't. The card on Saturday is much better, but there are some quality fights in this card, and to me, there's some money to be won. So let's dive right into it. I'm just going to pull up the Tapology, Cole. Just give me your initial thoughts on the card as a whole, as usual.
I mean, there's some fights I'm looking forward to. The main event, I think it's a pretty good main event. Fights on early Wednesday morning. I can't really complain about watching fights during the day on a Wednesday, but it's obviously this is the worst one of the three cards, but it's still there's still some good fights I'm looking forward to.
Yeah, that's another good point. 9 a.m. Eastern time, 6 a.m. I guess it would be, right, for Pacific, right? Or would it be? Yeah. I don't even know. Can't even think of the time. But yeah, 9 a.m. for us, Cole. It's going to be fine with me. I mean, this is our job, so no problem with that. Let's start with the card. Let's start with the first fight according to Tapology. Women's flyweight bout, Victoria Leonardo against Manon Fiero. And right now we have Fiero minus 200, Victoria Leonardo plus 170. Who's your pick, Cole?
I like Fiero. I've just been a bit more impressed there. I know Leonardo did pull off that big upset over Chelsea Hackett. I'm still just not sure what she's going to be like in the UFC. You know, it's kind of crazy. This line opened as a straight pick, and then you obviously see the public went hard on Fiero. She obviously looked good in UAE Warriors. I guess her biggest win would probably be her last one. That's the most experienced girl she fought. She did fight Leah McCourt in her debut, lost a split decision, so obviously fought someone like that. But Leonardo, like, she does have some good wins. Like, she's fought in Invicta. She's fought girls like Miranda Maverick, Erin Blanchfield. She does have a win over Haley Cowan, who's like a top prospect in LFA. But I just think Fiero's a bit better. On the feet, she's a lot better than Leonardo. And then if it hits the ground, that's where Hackett had a lot of problems against Leonardo. But I just think Fiero is a lot better grappler, where she'll be able to keep it standing just on the feet, be able to piece up Leonardo. I'm not too sure she'll be able to finish her. We have seen Leonardo get knocked out before. Fiero has a lot of knockout power, but I like Fiero just to win this fight. I'm not maybe a late stoppage.
Yeah, I'm with you on this one. So I honestly didn't really know much about her. I watched tape on her yesterday, and man, I'm impressed. I mean, she looked good. She's got a really dominant ground game, as you guys can see in those fights. And yeah, I mean, her level competition has been great. It has not been terrible though. Like at least the women she's fighting are like they're women with winning records for the most part. So it's not like she's fighting horrible competition. I actually was pretty impressed, man. I think she has really good dominant wrestling, and her striking was pretty vicious that last fight against Campo, where she finished her against the fence. I think she looked pretty good. I mean, like I'm not sure like how she's going to fare against UFC caliber fighters, but you know, this is a good step, I think, for her to get a win in the UFC. A good fight for her to get her first fight in the UFC against like Leonardo, who's coming off a nice win. I mean, listen, she looked great in the last fight against Chelsea Hackett, but I'm just not convinced that Hackett's even on the same level as Fiero is right now, especially with the grappling. Like, that's where Leonardo just dominated her in that last fight, and it was a smart game plan, and she got a UFC contract, but it's still someone that's lost a few times in Invicta, Cole. Like, we've seen her lose actually as an amateur quite a few times as well. I'm just not completely sold on her yet. So, yeah, I mean, definitely Leonardo, you know what? Like, she's got some finishing ability for this weight class, which is nice to see. I just don't see it in this fight. I think it's kind of a bad matchup for her. I like Fiero quite a bit, Cole. I got to be honest, man. Minus 200 is not bad. I think she's going to be someone, I think, that once you see her fight, you're going to be like, oh, I wish I bet on her. Like, from what I've seen, she's really, really good. So, Fiero, I'm thinking decision, Cole, but it could be a late TKO, like you said, maybe ground and pound, because Fiero just takes you down, pounds you out. That's what she does to a lot of her opponents, and she's pretty successful at it. But obviously, I would say Leonardo is a step up in competition. I just think she's going to be able to pass the test. So Fiero, and I do like her quite a bit. Jamie Gidley, what's up, guys? Murphy versus Deandrade is going to be a banger. I love that fight too, man. Can't wait to talk about that one. That's actually one of the better fights. Okay, next up, we have a bantamweight bout. Umar Nurmagomedov against Sergey Morozov. And the odds are, wow, they're pretty crazy. Minus 525 for Nurmi and plus 415 for Morozov. What do you think of these odds, Cole? They seem kind of inflated.
Yeah, I don't like the odds at all. I do like Nurmagomedov to win inside the distance is plus 205. I think he finishes the fight. I think he gets Morozov down and submits him. I would obviously submission's a bit higher, but just in case he grounds pounds about, I do think Nurmagomedov finishes this fight. We've seen Morozov get finished before, like Movsar Evloev submitted him. He's been knocked out before at M1. And Nurmagomedov just has relentless wrestling. And this guy gets you down to the ground, and he's just going to look to ground and pound you or take a hold of your neck. And I'm not really sure if Morozov can keep up that, can like survive that for 15 minutes. Like it might not be a first down finish. It might be a late finish where eventually Morozov just kind of had enough and he's just getting beat up so much that Nurmagomedov can just grab hold of his neck. But I like him to finish. I wouldn't bet him straight. That's obviously way too high of a line. I think just because of the last name, he is getting bet up a lot more. But I do think this is a very winnable fight for him in his UFC debut. I actually would have liked to see that Nathaniel Wood. I think that's a lot closer a fight. I think that's a fight that should happen next, but I like Nurmagomedov to win inside the distance.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I'm picking him, obviously. I just think the line's crazy. Like, we saw this guy fight in PFL. Honestly, he wasn't that special to me. I know he's really young. He's only 25, so I'm sure he's made some improvements. He hasn't fought in 2 years, so I'm sure that's helped as well to get some improvements. But that's a long layoff. And again, just a guy that I honestly wasn't that impressed with the PFL. He didn't look that great, but we all know the pedigree. We know the background. So I'm not surprised he was a big fair. I honestly think Morozov has a much better chance to win than the odds are indicating. He's on a nice win streak, 5-fight win streak. He's fought some solid competition at M1. I believe he is the champion there, bantamweight champ. To me, he's got a really good chance to win this fight, Cole. So I actually am going to stay away from this one. I'm going to pick Nurmagomedov. I think he'll probably grind a decision out, but I honestly wouldn't be surprised if Morozov won. I think it's a possibility, and definitely a better chance of the odds are indicating plus 415. I wouldn't play it myself. But I do think that it should be like, it's closer to like minus 350 or minus 400 than minus 525. But that's my opinion on that one. Okay, next up we have a lightweight bout between Mike Davis and Mason Jones. And right now we have Mike Davis minus 160, Jones plus 140. Who's your pick?
This is actually my first underdog. I like Mason Jones. I think Mason Jones is as legit as they come. This guy's a 2-division champion of Cage Warriors. Only Dan Hardy and Conor McGregor are the only ever 2-division champions of Cage Warriors. So you know how good you have to be. Cage Wars, a really good promotion. He's a guy that's knocked out Adam Proctor in the first round, who a lot of guys thought if he won the welterweight championship, he's someone the UFC signing right away. He was 12-1. He was a lot bigger than Jones, and Jones just kind of walked him down and just beat him up pretty good. Has some good wins in Cage Warriors, has a high-level competition. Which I like about Cage Warriors is they don't kind of just pad people's records. Like, you have to go through the ringer. With Mike Davis, it's kind of tough. Like, the guy loses to Sadiq Youssef on Contender Series. That's obviously a tough fight. And then he wins 2, takes a short notice fight against Gilbert Burns. That's about as tough as it gets, a short notice fight against Gilbert Burns. Then he goes out there and just dominates Thomas Gifford. But Thomas Gifford, it was not UFC caliber at all. So it's really hard to tell how good Mike Davis is just because the guy is losing to legit, obviously, contenders. He lost to Sadiq Youssef at featherweight, and then he loses to Gilbert Burns at lightweight. He has been fighting at lightweight recently, but Mason Jones is a guy that fought at welterweight. I think he's going to be a lot bigger than Mike Davis. I wouldn't be surprised if it's going to be similar to that Proctor fight where Jones isn't really too scared of him, just kind of walks him down. Does he finish as Mike Davis? I'm not too sure. Obviously, Sadiq Youssef couldn't even finish him. I'll pick Mason Jones by decision because I think this guy is a future contender in this division.
Yeah, I like this matchup too. You know what's crazy? I'm just looking at the stats. How did Thomas Gifford land 88 significant strikes in that fight? I don't remember him landing one. I just remember him getting like one of the worst beatings of all time. And you know what's crazy, Cole? I was like, after that fight, I was like, Thomas Gifford will never fight again. He actually fought again. Mike Davis is the one who has never fought since that fight. How crazy is that? one of the worst beatdowns we've ever seen. The guy who got his ass kicked actually has been in the cage sooner than the guy who looked incredible. I'll be honest, man. I mean, that was a good performance, but I'm not sold on him, Cole. I'm with you. I think Mason Jones can win this fight. Some underdogs will win this card. And at plus 140, I think there's value on him. I actually think he could be favored in this fight. I'm with you, Cole. I think, first off, he's undefeated, which I love, 10-0, 25 years old, super young. And he's fought good competition. If you look at who he's fought, they're guys with winning records. So I've been impressed with this dude. I think he's quite good. Mike Davis definitely looked good in the Thomas Gifford fight. Other than that, I haven't been too impressed with the guy. I guess I wouldn't be surprised if he won him. He's definitely got good striking. We've seen that. But I think Mason Jones actually is probably a more just varied striker. He's got overall better striking. I think it's going to be what he needs to do to win this fight. So my pick is Mason Jones, actually, Cole. I'm going to take him by, I don't know, maybe decision. I don't know. It's hard to say. Maybe knockout. By the way, Cole, I can hear some echo. I don't know if that's on your end or something. Like, I can hear myself talking. Maybe because, or usually wear headphones or no?
No.
Okay, that's weird. I can definitely hear myself, though. If anyone else can hear, can you just let me know in the chat?
It's fine for me.
Okay, it is? Okay, that's weird. I can definitely hear myself. Straight wager. Jones is a real solid fighter. You guys are onto something here. I agree. And Marcus likes the underdog value in Jones. Yeah, I like him too. I think at plus 140 is value, guys. So, yeah, I think he's definitely going to probably be a bet for me because I think he could be favored, Cole. I'll be honest. I think he could be like minus 130 or something like that, like even money. I just think he should be slightly favored here. Don't get me wrong. Mike Davis is decent. If he wins, it wouldn't surprise me, but I like Jones. All right, next up, we got – this is a fun one too. Okay, actually, they're saying 125, but I think it's at 135.
No, it's flyweight.
You sure?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. It is flyweight. Good. Where did I see it was 135? Probably Tapology, or not Tapology. Wikipedia had it at 135 yesterday. Just have to update my article. Yeah, I thought it was at 125 because I remember when Figueiredo said he was coming to the UFC, he wanted to fight at 125, so that's good to see. As far as this fight goes, the odds have Francisco Figueiredo minus 150, Jerome Rivera plus 130. What are your thoughts on this one, Cole?
I'm going back-to-back underdogs, and I'm going Jerome Rivera here. There's a couple reasons. Francisco Figueiredo, he did make 126 this morning, but the guy hasn't fought in 2019. He's been fighting at bantamweight and featherweight, so I kind of worry what his cardio is going to be like at flyweight, just cutting all that extra weight. He does have a lot of knockout power, but he just hasn't fought since his last win was 2018, and his last fight was a draw, which is kind of surprising. It's just the name got him in. But the thing is, it's hard to find tape on this guy. Like, there isn't many fights out there. And he has lost before. Like, he's not this undefeated guy. He's not very active either. And I liked, even though Jerome Rivera did get knocked out against Tyson Am, he had a good first round. He fought a good fight where I think if he can survive that first round of Francisco Figueiredo, where it looks like that's where he's the most dangerous, I think he can have a lot of success where he can out-cardio Figueiredo and just pick him apart for the second, third round win decision. I think Figueiredo is becoming the favorite just because of the last name. There's not much available on him. He's not this undefeated guy like his brother, this like world beater. I think this is a spot where I think this is a close fight. Like, I think this should be a pick. I'm just get underdog money on Jerome Rivera. I kind of have to take the shot.
This was interesting too, no doubt about it. Actually, I did the opening odds yesterday, and Rivera actually opened as the favorite, so the lines flipped, and I'm not surprised by that. I think the odds maker should have opened him as a favorite just because of the last name. People are going to bet on regardless. And listen, like I understand that this is not the greatest way to pick a fight, but I don't think I could pick against a guy with the last name Figueiredo. I don't think I could pick against Davidson's brother. I just don't think I could do it, guys. I mean, we'll see how good he really is. What I saw on tape when I wrote the article about him signing like 2 months ago, he looked really good to me. But he hasn't fought in a while, which is definitely scary. Rivera's got some advantages. He's younger. He is a bit longer, a bit taller. So he's got some advantage in this fight. And I'm just worried because of the chin a little bit. We saw him get knocked out in that fight, and he's been finished quite a few times, 3 times actually. One was an injury, but it does worry me a little bit. I'm going to, I guess as bad as it sounds, I'm going to blindly pick Figueiredo on a hunch that he's going to look really good in this fight, but I'm not going to play this fight. Rivera has advantages, like Cole said. I wouldn't be surprised if he won. I just don't think I could pick against a Figueiredo right now, honestly. His brother looks amazing. He says his brother's going to be really good in the UFC, and you know what? How can you doubt these guys? They're both, well, his brother is incredible. So let's see how good this guy really is. It's a good test for him. Good test for both guys. Francisco Figueiredo by decision, but I don't think I could play this fight, Cole. I gotta stay away from it. Watch these guys, see how good he really is, and we'll make an evaluation based on this fight. All right, next up we have is that the right fight? Yeah, yep. Dalka Lungiambula against Marcus Perez at 185. Dalka Lungiambula minus 135, Perez 115. Both these guys, we should mention, had some like issues getting a fight in the last month or two. Like opponents have fallen off and stuff. So glad they were able to match this up, Cole. What's your thoughts on this fight, Cole?
Well, first of all, what was kind of crazy is Dalcha opened as a minus 350 favorite. Because I remember I sent that to you. I'm like, what the hell is this? Like, I like Dalcha to win this fight, but there was no way. If this stayed at minus 350, I would have just taken the shot on Perez just because of the pure line. Like, this is, to me, is just a pick 'em fight. Like, obviously, Dalcha moving down to middleweight, he made the weight, so obviously he could do it. But I was kind of surprised he was making that way down because he looked pretty solid at 205. But Marcus Perez coming off a knockout loss to Dricus Du Plessis just like 3 months ago, which is kind of weird because normally when you get knocked out, I like to see you take a bit more time off. Like, there's countless examples, like Gerald Meerschaert got knocked out, Ian Heinisch. He returns 2 months later and Hamza one punches him. Like, is his chin fully healed? Like, I'm not too sure. But Dalcha doesn't have a whole lot of power. He did knock out Con Townsend, but that's to Con Townsend. Got knocked out against Magomed Ankalaev and hasn't fought since November 2019. So the layoff kind of scares me away. This is a pure pass for me. I'll pick Dalcha probably by decision, maybe a late finish, like a similar to that Daquan where he just eventually just gets him down, just kind of ground and pounds Perez out. But I don't have really any interest in betting either side.
Yeah, if you want to throw their picks in the chat, please feel free to. I'd like to see what other people are thinking for this fight, especially because this is a weird one, Cole, honestly. Two guys that have been really inconsistent in the UFC. Dalka 1-1, looked good against Townsend and then looked terrible against Ankalaev. He got nailed in the face with that front kick, finished. Hasn't fought since then, Cole. A lot of guys haven't fought since that card. Zabit hasn't fought since that card. He headlined it. Like, that card is just cursed or something, man. A lot of these guys just haven't fought much. Like, listen, like, the guy is making his 185-pound debut, Cole, and he's already a huge light heavyweight. I'm just worried that he cut too much weight. Like, didn't he cut weight the last time too? Like, he's cut weight twice, right? That worries me, I'll be honest, because he's never fought at 185 before. So, of course, it worries me, especially cutting weight twice. Now, if he makes the weight successfully, I think he weighed in this morning. He's fine. No one missed weight, right? Or last night, I should say, right? Yeah, no one missed weight. It was like last night. It was like at midnight last night. So that's good to hear. But how we look in the fight? He's going to have a little bit of time to recover, obviously. But, you know, Cole, if he can make the weight, sure. I mean, there's something to like about him. He's got a long reach, 76-inch reach. That's nice. But he's still, like, pretty short, too. For 5'8" for that division, it's pretty short. I don't even know how he was fighting a light heavyweight. That's crazy at 5'8". Perez, he's been inconsistent, too, man. Like, really inconsistent. 3-4 in the UFC. That last fight was disappointing to see him get KO'd because his losses were, like, pretty close decisions for the most part. To see him get knocked out like that was pretty surprising. Having said that, you know, I still think I got to lean towards Perez a little bit here because he's more proven in this weight class for me. And I'm just worried with Dalka with the layoff, the weight cut, the double weight cut, just his lack of activity in his fights. So you look at the Ankalaev fight, he landed 6 significant strikes through 3 rounds. Like, he did nothing in that fight. If he just stands there and looks at Perez can just kick him in the leg and maybe, you know, throw some jabs and win the fight like that. That's how I actually think this fight's going to go. I think it's going to be a pretty bad fight, and I think that Perez wins a decision. That's my guess. So Perez plus 115 is a dog. Am I betting it? Probably not, but I do think that he could be slightly favored just based on his experience in the weight class. I love how we have more time to talk about the fights now, man. I feel like I can go really in depth in these fights, which is great. Let me get this comment. Du Plessis is a solid fighter. He's right about that, Cole. I agree. And Perez was giving all he could handle, which was surprising, honestly. Staying off this one, I have no read on Perez. Yeah, he's a weird fighter, man. He's so weird, Cole. He's got some really nice wins on his resume, Cole. Doesn't he? He has a win over Heinisch, too, right? By submission, I think. So, I mean, he's just a weird dude. All right, next up. This one's a pretty good fight. Suma Darji against Zaruk Adashev. And this is definitely going to be a stand-up war. Wow, look at the odds on this one. Minus 470 for Suma Darji, Zaruk Adashev, plus 375. Wow. What do you think of this one, Cole?
Yeah, I still remember when we both picked Tyson Nam over Zaruk, and people were calling us crazy, like, oh, Zaruk's going to go out there and knock him out. I don't think this guy's UFC caliber at all.
No.
Tyson Nam threw one punch, and it knocked him out. The guy's 3-2 as an MMA fighter. He did fight in Bellator, but he beat an 0-1 guy, an 0-2 guy, and a 3-1 guy. I think Sue is just going to be able to outstrike him all day. I think the line is a bit too high just because of Sue's last fight against Malcolm Gordon, which I don't put much stock into because as though I want to see all the Canadians succeed, when Malcolm Gordon gets hit, he tends to just not do well or gets knocked out. So I don't really put a whole lot in that fight. Obviously, he looked really fast, looked good, his striking. I think he'll be able to outstrike Adeshev. I wouldn't be surprised if he knocks him out too. Like, Adeshev's chin, I thought was going to be a lot better. Like, I know Tyson Am is probably one of the hardest hitters at flyweight, other than maybe Figueiredo. Figueiredo probably is the hardest hitter. Tyson Am is probably right up there for the hardest hitter. So you can't put too much stock in that. But I do like Sue, and I'll pick Sue by knockout.
Yeah, I think he's the biggest favorite in the card, right? Besides Nurmagomedov. I think he's my most confident pick in the card, Cole, honestly. Like, I really like him in this fight. There's a few reasons. First off, look at that reach, guys. 7-inch reach advantage. That's incredible. 72-inch reach for flyweight. It's amazing. 4 years younger as well as far as the age goes, which is really nice to see. But what I like most about it is just I think he's going to have the striking advantage in this fight. I know Adeshev comes from a striking background. We didn't see that against Tyson Am. He looked like an amateur in that fight. He didn't even have his chin covered by anything. He didn't have his hands up. He had his hands right by his waist and got KO'd with one punch. How good of a striker really is that guy? I mean, there's been so many fights, Cole. We've heard this guy's such a great striker, world-class striker. He goes to MMA and just gets smashed, just like that dude did. But Darji looked amazing against Malcolm Gordon. I get that guy kind of quit in that fight, I understand. But even the Sukumtov fight, Cole, like, look at the stats for that fight, like the amount of strikes he landed. The defense is excellent as well. I love everything about him in this fight. I mean, Adeshev, there's nothing I can like about him here. I understand that he's probably got a little bit of untapped potential. We probably haven't seen the best of him in the UFC yet, or in MMA in general with a 3-2 record, but I don't think he's another Giga Chikadze who's going to have like a really good run in MMA. I think he's going to be a guy that's going to really struggle, Cole. I don't think he has a well-rounded game, and the defense isn't good in the feet either. So give me Suma Darji, guys. I really like him in this fight. He's my most confident pick. Minus 470 tells you everything you need to know. Everyone's going to bet on this guy in a parlay. That's the problem here. It's kind of unplayable at minus 470. You're going to have to look at a prop, I guess. Even Madarji inside the distance is juiced up at minus 185. It's a tough fight to bet just because I think everyone's kind of on the same page with this one. But I really like him in this fight. So figure out a way to play him in some capacity, I think, because he'll win this fight, Cole. I'm very confident that he wins. I just wish it was cheaper than minus 470. It opened at minus 265. So I would have played that, Cole. Minus 265. That would have been a great bet. If you guys got that, nice bet. All right, next up, another bantamweight bout. We have Ricky Simón against Gaetano Perello. I apologize, Al Zulino, if you're hearing this podcast. I apologize if I pronounce your boy's name wrong, but Gaetano Perello, I believe, is the right pronunciation. All right, so as far as this fight goes, Simón minus 450, Perello plus 360. He's filling in on short notice for someone, isn't he, Cole? I thought he was filling in on short notice, right? Yeah. Who fell out? Kelleher, yeah. Who's your pick?
I like Ricky Simón. I just think he's going to be able to out-wrestle Perello. We've seen Perello struggle a lot when he gets down to the ground. He got heel hooked. He's been submitted quite a few times. He did fight Arnold Allen went the distance, which kind of is impressive. But I think if Ricky Simón, what I've seen from Perello is he goes balls to the wall basically in that first round. And if he can't get you in the first round, he just kind of is done. Like he can't really keep up. He does have statistics wins, but he definitely slows down. We've seen Simón get caught before by Uriah Faber, so a Perello knockout is not out of the question. But I just think Simón will be able to take him down and probably end up submitting him or ground pounding him out probably like the second round.
I'm honestly not as confident in Simón as I was in Madarji. I feel like Madarji has a much clearer path just with the striking alone. With this fight, like Simón, yeah, I think he'll probably want to wrestle Perello because I watched the tape on this guy too, and he's got holes in his game. There's no doubt about it, Cole, but he does go for broke, and he's got some power, man. Like, his knees are pretty nasty. The last fight with the liver shot, that was nasty. I think he hit him with the knee to the body and just knocked the guy out. It was brutal. So this guy's got some power, man. He looked okay on tape. He's not that bad. I think the line's inflated, man. I honestly don't want to play this fight. I'm going to pass on this one. I like Simón. He's decent, but, I mean, even the UFC struggled a little bit, 4-2. The loss to Faber still worries me, man. I remember how confident I was in that fight, Cole. I was so confident he'd win, and he gets KO'd by a guy who's 40 years old. That really worries me going forward. I could see Perello knocking him out, honestly, guys. So I'm going to stay away. I'll take Simón. I think Cole's right. He probably grinds out a decision. That's kind of his MO in the UFC so far. But I wouldn't be surprised at all if Perello knocked him out, honestly. It wouldn't shock me. I'm not going to look at the team. That wouldn't be one of the ones to shock me, just because I think this guy's a little better than people think. I can't pick him. The short notice bothers me a little bit too. Here's a comment from Straight Wager. I think he's talking about the fight with Medarji. Fight won't start second round, plus 275. That's interesting. Yeah, if you see a first round finish possible, right? Maybe it goes a little later because Adeshev is, he's got some striking skills. Maybe he's going to be able to evade some strikes. But you're right. I like Medarji in that fight. Anyways, Simone by decision. Cole picks Simone. I think decision, Cole. Is that what you said?
No, I think he's going to get him out of there.
Oh, you got to finish, eh? Yeah, it's possible. I mean, this guy could gas. That's what I'm worried about, this guy. I can't pick him because of that reason, too. I think he's going to gas out a little bit, but I don't know, guys. I just think the line's a little high. Like, I think people are kind of overrating Ricky Simone. Since when is he minus 450 against anyone? I don't agree with that one at all. No, he's actually saying this one, Simone. Oh, that's interesting. So you see a first-round finish. That's interesting in this fight. Yeah, it's possible. I think it's either a first-round finish or it goes a distance, but we'll see. What do you guys think about that fight, though? Am I crazy to think the line's too high? I don't know. I guess I'm not as sold on Ricky Simone Cole as some people are. Like I was at first. I was really sold on him after the first couple fights, but the Faber fight turned me off a lot, Cole, I'll be honest. All right, next up we have – okay, we talked about this fight last week, but, I mean, might as well do it again. We'll do it really quick. Tom Breeze against Omari Akhmadov, and the odds are pretty much the same as they were last week. Minus 160 Breeze, plus 140 Omari Akhmadov. What's your thoughts on this one a week later, Cole?
Yeah, I'm still going Tom Breeze. It's still one where I don't feel confident betting either side just because I did pick Wilder against Akhmadov, but I still just wasn't impressed. Just him gassing out like that, it kind of worries me with Tom Breeze. Like, you just don't know what Tom Breeze shows up. Like, he does look like he's in shape, but being a KB Buller, like, obviously it was good to get a win, but KB Buller, not putting much stock into that. When he's on, Tom Breeze looks like he'd be a top 15 guy, but the problem is you don't know which one's showing up. So I'll pick Breeze by decision. I think he can stop the takedowns of Akhmadov, has some success. Eventually, Akhmadov gasses, and he'll win the later rounds. But it's just too hard for me to pick just because I don't know what Tom Breeze – or sorry, not pick, but put money on just because I don't know what Tom Breeze shows up and how Akhmadov's gas tank is going to be.
Yeah, there's definitely some risk in this one. I mean, I still like Breeze. I still like him quite a bit. I think based on what I saw in the last fight, he's made some serious strides in his game, mental game too. He's a guy who's had some issues with his mental game, with his heart, a lot of health issues, which is scary. I hate betting on guys like that. I really do. But, man, he looked great in that last fight. That was so nasty. The way he knocked the guy out with the jab, basically. That was incredible. So I was impressed, man. It was nice to see him get a win after such a long time away from MMA, 2 years away. Akhmadov, we know his game. He's got good wrestling. He's a tough dude. He has some power, but his cardio is not very good. And his chin, he's been KO'd a few times as well. So he's got a lot of holes in this game. I still like Tom Breeze, Cole. The week delay kind of confuses me. Like, we didn't really hear much. It was just like COVID-19 protocol related. I mean, someone in their camp has COVID. Did one of the fighters get a false positive? We don't really know. Like, there wasn't much information. So that does kind of throw it off. But I like Breeze, guys. And the line is not bad. Minus 160. That's a reasonable line. You guys know I like playing short lines like that. So that'd be one I'm looking at. Straight wager. Simone can get caught. Pearl's first round bust. Simone can also sub me. He's finally like a madman early. Take my take on maybe big plus money spots. Possible for sure. Definitely possible, man. That's why it's plus money, right? Because it's hard to call. But I think you're onto something. Okay, that's it for the prelims, Cole. Let's move on to the main card. First fight in the main card: Leron Murphy against Douglas Silva de Andrade. Leron Murphy minus 310. Silva de Andrade plus 255. Who's your pick, Cole? And everyone else, who's your pick? Throw them in the chat. I want to hear what everyone's thinking about this one.
I like Leron Murphy a lot here. Douglas Silva de Andrade, I think he's more of a bantamweight than a featherweight. And it's kind of funny. It's Andrade is like tale of two fighters. When the guy fights in Brazil, he looks like a world beater. Like, he's beat Marlon Vera, beat Renan Barão. Like, go down his list when he fights in Brazil. That's mostly when he wins. When he fights out of Brazil, like, I don't know if it's just like the travel or whatnot, he just doesn't have success. Got a submit against Rob Font. Corner threw in the towel or stopped the fight against Peter Yan. Obviously, those are not bad fighters to lose to, but at featherweight, I just like Leron Murphy. I think he's a lot better on the feet. I think he can win this fight wherever. I think if it hits the ground, I like Murphy is better as a grappler. On the feet, I think he's going to be more active. He has the better power. Does he finish? I think the real question is, does he finish Silva de Andrade? I actually do think he does. I like Leron Murphy, what he did to Ricardo Ramos. That was obviously a good one. Taking Andrade against Zubaira, and people thought he won the fight. So that's obviously – and if I'm not mistaken, I think that was a short notice for Murphy or something, because But I've been very impressed with Jerome Murphy in the UFC. I think he goes out there eventually, either taps out or I think he's going to end up and eventually going to ground and pound Silva de Andrade out, probably like second, third round.
Yeah, I like this matchup, but I really like Jerome Murphy too in this fight. I love him in this fight, actually, guys. Like, he's one of my most confident picks too. And again, he's a big favorite for a reason, but there's a lot to like about him here. I mean, he's taller. He's got 5-inch reach advantage, which is really nice to see. 6, 8 years younger as well. So I mean, there's a lot of advantages for this guy. Not only that, but I mean, like, he's done better than expectations too, which is nice to see. The fight with Tukugov, he was a big underdog, and he had a draw in that fight. Cool. And then the fight with Ramos, he was an underdog, and I picked him in that fight, and he knocked the guy out in the first round, which was a nice win. De Andrade has had some nice wins in the UFC, no doubt about it, Cole. Marlon Vera, Penn and Brow, he looked good in those fights, but you're right, Cole. There's something to be said about the location of those fights. I remember those fights. The crowd really got behind that guy. Like, he had the crowd behind him, and I think that he won't have that here. So to me, this is a fight that takes place in the feet, and Murphy's got that 5-inch reach advantage. The question is, does he get finished or not? Can he finish Silva de Andrade or not? And it's a question I need to answer myself like soon, because I do a pool with a bunch of friends. We have 30 guys in it this year, Cole, which is great. So we pick the main card and we do the method of finish too. You get bonus points for that. So I really need to nail this one right. But I'm thinking a knockout too. I actually think a knockout. Based on what I saw in the last fight, he's a savage. De Andrade took a ton of damage in that Peter Yan fight. Man, I know he went to the distance with Barral, Cole, but Jerome Murphy is a different beast. And I'm 100% with you, Cole. I don't like the weight class for him either. I think he's a 135er. He is not a 145er. The weight could be too much to handle too. I'm with you, Cole. I'm going to go with Jerome Murphy by TKO. I really like him in this fight, guys. Like, I'm confident in this to win this fight. Jerome Murphy by TKO is plus 110. Inside the distance is even money. So that's not bad. That's definitely something to consider. I don't mind that play at all. Okay, next up we have flyweights Tyson Nam. Speaking of the devil, we talked about him earlier, and Matt Schnell. This should be a fun fight, Cole. This is one of the closest fights in the card as far as the odds go, guys. Tyson Nam minus 130, Matt Schnell plus 110. Who's your pick, Cole?
I remember back in September, I picked Matt Schnell, but I'm actually going to flip to Tyson Nam now just because of a couple of reasons. I didn't like Schnell botching the weight cut. Obviously, what's that going to do? And then he pulls out again, so I'm kind of worried of what he's like right now. And just the layoff. It's now a massive layoff, like December of 2019. And the last time he fought, he got knocked out against Alexander Pantoja, who's not really known as that knockout artist as Tyson Nam is. And Nam's been active throughout the time. Like, obviously, Zaruk and Jerome Rivera. It's kind of funny his last two opponents are also on the same card as him, but those obviously aren't the best wins. They're not ranked guys, but I do think Matt Schnell won't be able to take Nam down. And then on the feed, I think Nam's eventually going to land something big and knock out Matt Schnell.
Yeah, I'm thinking the same thing, actually. The more I looked into this one, too, I think it's close. Don't get me wrong. I wouldn't be surprised if Schnell wins, by the way, guys. Like, he's got some advantage in this fight. There's no doubt about it. Just look at it. Like, he's got 2-inch reach advantage, which is, in my opinion, 2 inches is kind of negligible because it's 1 inch on each arm, but still, he does have that advantage. He's 1 inch taller. He's also 7 years younger, which I like too. So he's got some advantages. I don't think you can completely discount him here, and that's why the line's close. But Tyson Nam, the power is what separates these two, in my opinion. He has legitimate KO power. We saw that in the last 2 fights. Matt Schnell's been knocked out 3 times in the UFC. I understand he's improved that aspect of his game probably. He's only been KO'd once in the last, 3 years, but long layoff, hasn't fought in over a year, Cole. That bothers me a little bit too. Tyson Nam was one of those guys that was staying active during the pandemic and fighting often and looking good. I know he's old. That's what bothers me about him in this spot, Cole. He's 37, right? Almost 37, 36 right now. Actually, no, he is 37. Wow. So he's getting up there in age. I mean, he's probably the oldest guy in the division. That's what bothers me about him in the spot. But I think skill-wise, he should win this fight if he stays standing, especially. He can knock out Schnell. But, maybe he gets tired. Schnell takes him down. It's possible. Schnell's ground game is really nasty. So, I mean, I'm really curious to see how this fight plays out. I really am. But I got to favor Tyson Nam. I just can't pick Schnell, Cole. Not with that chin, man. 4-3 in the UFC, 3 knockout losses, and I just can't. I can't trust that. So we'll go with Tyson Nam by TKO, probably the first round if I had to guess. Next up, women's flyweight bout: Roxanne Modafferi against Viviane Araujo. Araujo minus 330, Roxy plus 270. Who's your pick?
I like Viviane Araujo here. I think she's just going to be able to outwork Roxanne Modafferi on the feet. If Modafferi can't get down to this fight down to the ground, I think she's gonna have a lot of problems. But I just think Araujo is gonna be a lot physically stronger than Modafferi. Where I wouldn't be able to surprise if she's kind of like big brothers or I guess big sisters or where it's like Modafferi kind of goes to that takedown and Araujo just kind of shoves her off. Like I think she's gonna be a bit better everywhere. What's kind of surprising though is Araujo's 34. Like I didn't think that surprised a lot of people. I think people think she's like this young up and coming prospect of flyweight. Like this is kind of do or die for her to make a run at flyweight. Like obviously flyweight is weak. She's coming off a win over Montana De La Rosa. Looked really impressive on the feet. Before that, lost to Jessica Ai in a fight that I still remember. I picked Ai in that fight, and I have no clue why I picked Ai because I don't really pick Jessica Ai in a lot of fights, but for some reason I did. And she just kind of the Ai fight is kind of how I see this one going, but the opposite. Like where Ai was just stronger than Araujo and just kind of stuffed the takedowns and picked her apart on the feet. I think that's going to happen on the flip side where Rue's going to stuff Modafferi's takedown, be a lot more active on the feet. We've seen Modafferi. Modafferi has been a lot better recently. Her chin showed impressive. Like Lauren Murphy landed some heavy shots at her. She did get wobbled, but she kept going forward. I don't think Araujo's going to finish Modafferi, but I'll pick Araujo by decision.
Yeah, I think I pretty much agree with what you said there for the most part. I like Araujo in this fight too. You're right, Cole. She's got to make a run for it. Now, listen, like the thing about her is she's pretty small for this division. She's 5'4", like she's tiny, right? Roxanne's 5'7", so she's a little bit smaller, but man, she's feisty and she's got good striking, very good striking. We saw that in the Montana De La Rosa fight, even though I think it was DC that was commentating, that was saying that De La Rosa was winning the fight when Araujo was busting her face up for 50 minutes. Yeah, I mean, I just think she's a better striker in this fight. And what I like is the 92% takedown defense. Roxy's got to take her down to win this fight. I don't think she can beat her on the feet. If she takes her down, she could implement a grappling-heavy game plan. That's how she'd win this fight, in my opinion, Cole, just like she did to Barbara and Shevchenko. But I think if it stays standing, which I think it does, I think Araujo pieces her up. Probably decision, though. Roxy's very tough, very difficult to finish, so very durable. Araujo by decision, Cole. That's going to be my pick. That prop, what are the odds on that decision? Minus 125, so you have to lay a little juice. Again, not a great play to ever lay juice on props, but I think that's how this fight ends. Araujo by decision. All right, next up, and I got to be honest, why is this fight in the main card? Why? This is a terrible fight. It's really bad, guys. Ike Villanueva against Vinicius Barrera. Listen, if they want to give these guys one last chance, fine. Put it on the prelims, though. Come on. Third fight from the top? Really? Anyways, Ike Villanueva, minus 140. Vinicius Barrera, Cole's favorite fighter, plus 120. Who's your pick, Cole? So depressing, eh?
I can understand Ike being still on the UFC roster, getting one more, just because he did the UFC assault, took the short notice fight against Chase Sherman. Sherman actually tested positive, so that's going to be a no contest. They're just waiting on Florida. And then against Jordan Wright, it just kind of was that fluke cut. Like, who knows how that fight would have gone, just because I don't like Jordan Wright's chin. Like, maybe Ike would have caught him. This, I don't get Vinicius Moreira still being in the UFC at all. The guy knocked out against Alonzo Menifield, knocked out at Eric Anders. That was like a combined 5 minutes of cage time. And then Paul Craig goes out there and drops him. Could have knocked him out, but then just decides to grab on his neck and taps him out. And what's bad, though, is he just doesn't get TKO'd. Like, this guy gets knocked out cold. Like, he gets put out. Like, Alonzo Menifield sure has some power, but I was disappointed. Eric Anders, I don't think is that not one-punch knockout artist he looked against Moreira. Like, this is a guy they were giving people like Eric Anders and Paul Craig just to get an easy win to build him back up. I think they kind of like Ike. I think all it's going to take is Ike land one big shot. He's going to knock him out. The whole game plan is if Moreira can't get the fight down to the ground, he's going to lose. Ike hasn't been submitted. I was looking since 2016 when he got submitted against Trevin Giles, who is a pretty good grappler. It's been able to stuff some takedowns since then. So I'll pick Villanueva by first round knockout. I just think he needs to land one punch.
Yeah, I feel over the Sherman fight. It makes more sense that he's getting another fight because the guy tested positive, like you said. And then the fight with Wright, I mean, listen, he actually wanted to still fight in that fight, but the cut was really bad. It was a bad spot, too. So, you know why? I can see why they gave him another fight, but, doesn't mean I think he's going to stick around much longer, Cole. If he doesn't win this fight, even in the next one, I think he can get released. This fight is, again, don't want to fight your bash because these guys, they work their whole lives to get here. So I understand that, but I just don't think these guys belong in the UFC. And we've seen that in their performances. Moreira, like Cole said, 3 losses by stoppage in the first round, looked terrible. I guess they're still looking at those fights on the Contender Series fight where he submitted John Allen, who's a decent prospect. That's a good win. Maybe they think that he can still do that, but I just can't see it. He hasn't fought in so long. Dude, the last time he fought, it was on my mom's birthday in 2019, September 21st. That's a long time ago, dude. So, yeah, I mean, this guy's hasn't fought in forever. The thing about Ike is he's been submitted a few times. That's what worries me, guys. He's been submitted at least twice, and probably more because we can't see the method of victories for some of those losses he had early in his career in Texas. But, the losses, Cole, by submission scare me a little bit. Like, I know that Drysdale submitted him. He's a beast. But Justin Ledette submitted him, too. And also Trevin Giles did, too. And Trevin Giles is a lot smaller than him, too, which is scary. So if this guy goes in the ground, he could get submitted in the first round, I think. So, I can't pick Modafferi, though, Cole, because of the chin. I'm with – Cole's right. I mean, this guy, it's like Brendan Schaub. Remember when Brendan Schaub got touched in the chin? He would get knocked into oblivion. That's exactly what happens to this guy. So I think he'll probably get KO'd, but I can't bet it, man. Trey Rager says Barrera looked rough on the scales. The towel made a cameo. Yeah. I think Ike is he's going to be he's a very durable guy, Cole, I think in general, as far as striking goes, but I'm just worried if this guy grabs his neck or his arm or just pulls guard and Ike goes to the ground, then he can just get his neck and submit him. But that, like, pretty much Modafferi has one path to victory, Cole. He's got to submit him, right? That's the only path. Ike's got a few paths. He can knock him out. He can grind it for a decision. So he's got more paths. I'll take him. But, guys, don't bet on that fight. Seriously, don't bet on that one. All right, next up, Warlley Alves against Mounir Lazzez in the co-main event, welterweight bout. Odds, Mounir Lazzez minus 240, Warlley Alves plus 200. The odds actually open as a pick 'em, Cole, so early money's coming on Mounir. What's your thoughts on this one?
I like Mounir Lazzez here. I was impressed with him last time out against Abdul Razak Al Hassan. He has a first-round knock win over Sasha Palatnikov, who looked good against Louis Cosi. Warlley Alves just is a guy, he's another tale of two fighters. If you get out of the first round against Warlley Alves, he just spends so much energy trying to get a first-round knockout, where once he gets that second round, if you look, that's where a lot of his finishes or a lot of his losses come from. Like, he will always hold that submission win over Colby Covington, which obviously is a really good win. He has a win over Alan Jouban, a win over Nordine Taleb. He was an undefeated guy heading into that Colby Covington fight, and that was after beat Covington. I really thought, well, Warlley Alves is that next big contender. Then he loses to Brian Bahrain and Kamaru Usman. Gets knocked out against James Krause. Gets submitted against Randy Brown. I just wonder, like, after that first round, he's going to have a lot of problems. Lazzez showed off a good chin, so I don't think Alves is going to be able to knock out in that first round. I think eventually Lazzez is going to finish him in that second, third round.
Yeah, I think that's the question for me too. Like, how does Lazzez win this fight? Does he win by decision or does he stop him? I think they're both possible for sure, but it's tough to say. I think Alves, man, I used to really be behind this guy. Like, I thought he would be a serious contender. I thought he could be a champion at one point when he won tough Brazil. I mean, and I think a lot of people felt that way. He beat Colby Covington. He submitted him 5 years ago on the Aldo McGregor card. So, like, this guy has some huge wins, but ever since then, Cole really struggled. 3-4. He's been stopped a few times now, and getting stopped by guys like James Krause who don't have a ton of knockout power. That's worrisome. Randy Brown fight gets submitted, so that's worrisome, definitely for sure. But I've seen him at his best too. I saw the fight with Moraes in Brazil. I was there for that fight. Cole, it was a nasty knockout. Like, this guy still has it at points, and again, he submitted Colby Covington, so he's got what it takes to win fights. I just don't know if the confidence is there anymore. And Lazzez is all about the confidence these days. I mean, we saw in that fight with Alves, showcase fight for him, won 3 straight fights, like you said, Cole. The winner of Palatnikov looks great now in hindsight. I mean, we didn't really know much about that guy, and he looks great now. So I liked what I saw. I'm not convinced he's, a future contender. Some people are saying. I'm not convinced by that, but I think this is a winnable fight for him. I'm thinking more decision, though, Cole. I think Alves could probably go the distance with this guy, but I wouldn't be surprised he puts him out either. So I guess so. My pick's going to be Lazzez by decision. Minus 240. I don't love the odds of those guys, I'll be honest. These minus 200 guys in that range, Cole, they always seem to lose, man. Like Buckley, Ponzinibbio, when like minus 250, minus 275. They always, he's not there yet. He's not quite there, but he's getting there, and those always scare me. So I don't know. Just that range of odds. It seems like there's more upsets in that range. Either way, yeah, Lazzez by decision. That's what I think. All right, main event of the evening, Cole. Michael Chiesa against Neil Magny, and the opening odds. The opening odds actually had Chiesa as the favorite, but it's flipped now. Magny's minus 145. Chiesa's plus 125. What's your pick in this one, Cole?
Yeah, this is a really good fight. I'm really looking forward to this one, but I am going to go with my third underdog on the card in Michael Chiesa. Neil Magny looked good. against Li Jingliang, and obviously that win looks good. Looks good against Robbie Lawler, but the Anthony Rocco Martin fight kind of there's a lot of questions if he even won that fight. And Rock Martin was just kind of be able to grind Magny out, make it a really boring fight. Like Chiesa does have to worry about Magny has a huge reach. Like can Magny has all the capabilities just to use his jab, not let Chiesa get inside, just win a decision that way. But I do think Chiesa is going to be able to close the distance. I do think he's going to be able to take him down. And the problem I have with Neil Magny still is maybe I shouldn't have this problem anymore, but I still think he makes a lot of mental mistakes in the fight where he just like he's been submitted a lot. When he gets down to the ground, like he just kind of gets lazy and makes some bad choices when he gets down to the ground. I think if that happens against Michael Chiesa, Chiesa is going to submit him. I don't know if a finish here happens, but I do like Michael Chiesa just to use his grappling, just kind of be able to grind out either a decision or maybe like a late submission win.
We'll get this comment from Straight Wager. Lazzez goes from plus 300 to minus 200 versus what could be a more respected fighter. Yeah, that always worries me too, guys. So, I see a lot of people blindly parlaying Mounir. He probably does win. I'm just saying, like, there's some things to be worried about. Anytime you're, like, fading a guy hard against Allison and he gets to be a big under favorite in his next fight, that's kind of something that's a bit of a red flag to look for. So I think that's definitely something to keep your eye on. Straight Wager. Okay. My thoughts on the main event, I think it's going to be a really competitive fight. I like this matchup a lot. You know what really surprised me, Cole, was when they're the same age. I was shocked by that. I thought Magny was way older for some reason. They're the same age. He's 3 months older, but, I mean, that's the same thing. Listen, Chiesa's look great at 170. I've always liked Michael Chiesa. I picked him in the Ultimate Fighter back in the day with me, Nick, and Luca. That was almost 10 years ago now. I can't believe it. I picked him in that fight. I was like, he's going to win. And everyone thought it was crazy. He goes in there, beats Quinta to win tough. And he's had a pretty good career in the UFC. And, I've picked him in most of his fights. Even the fight like against Masvidal, I picked him. Lozon, and he's disappointing in those fights. Since moving up to 170, looks like a different guy, though, no doubt about it. 3 straight wins. Condit, Sanchez, RDA. Dominated them with his wrestling. So he's looked great. But this is a tough fight, man. This is a really tough fight. Neil Magny is so well-rounded, and he's just so good everywhere. And there's so many advantages he has in this fight. He's 2 inches taller. I like that. I love this. 5-inch reach advantage. He has a reach advantage almost every fight. And the thing about Neil is, Cole, he really does know how to use his reach. He stays at distance better than anyone probably in the sport right now. He's able to use that long jab, move his head, bounce around. His chin's not great. If he gets caught in the chin, he can be KO'd. We've seen that a few times. Michael Chiesa doesn't have knockout power. Michael Chiesa has to get into the ground to win this fight. Magny has pretty good takedown defense, though. If you look at his last couple of fights, Li Jingliang took him down twice. Rocco took him down once. Robbie Lawler didn't take him down at all. And in fact, he's actually the one initiating the takedowns now. So I think he's turned into an extremely well-rounded fighter with decent takedown defense. And this is a 5-round fight. Michael Chiesa has never been 5 rounds before. That worries me. Neil Magny has been 5 rounds. And he beat Kelvin Gastelum in Mexico. He went 5 rounds with him, and he showed his cardio in that fight. And I think he's a better fighter now. Neil and that chin is always going to worry me against a guy with big power. But against a guy like Chiesa, against a grappler, I think this is a winnable fight for Neil Magny, guys. So, yeah, I think Neil Magny can use his jab, keep distance, stuff some of the takedowns. I'm not saying all of them will be stuffed, but I think, as long as he doesn't turn his back the wrong way in the ground and get rear naked choked in the first round, I think he's going to win decision, Cole. So that's going to be my pick in this fight, guys. Neil Magny, win decision. What's the problem on that? Magny by decision plus 145. Yeah, I wouldn't even play that. I would just play him straight, if anything. But, it's an interesting fight. If Chiesa wins this fight, he's legit as hell. But if Magny wins, it's time for like a top 5 opponent for him. What's Marcus saying? Oh, I'm leaning towards Magny by decision. Okay, so same as me. What are other people thinking? I'm really curious to hear what your guys' thoughts are. I think this is a really interesting fight, Cole. I like the fact it's 5 rounds. That's awesome. It's too bad we aren't breaking down Leon Edwards and Kamzat right now. Like, I would have really liked to talk about that fight. But, yeah, I don't know, Cole. We'll see what happens. Cole he had 3 underdogs. I had 2. We'll see what happens, guys. And there's going to be some underdogs that cash. There was, I think, 5 that won the other day, right? 4 or 5. So it's going to happen. Anyone has any questions? We have a few minutes left here. Like, we'll answer any questions, Cole. So you see me? I posted the opening odds for Folkanovsky Ortega. Volk minus 185, Ortega plus 155. What's your initial thoughts on that one? Might as well ask you.
I'm not too surprised. I figured that's what it was going to be. I think you're going to get action on both ways. I think there's some people that think Volkanovsky is the real deal and will get bet up at that price. I think people that are Holloway fans think, Volkanovsky isn't the real champ. Will bet Ortega. I think that's going to be kind of where that line even closes come fight night.
Yeah, I think you're right on that one. It looks pretty fair to me. I think people might start fading Volkanovski for some reason. Like, listen, I didn't think he won against Max in the second fight, but I think people are they got to realize it wasn't him who scored the fight, you know? So the guy's still a great fighter, man. The fact he had that first one over Max is super impressive. Just a few other things, Cole, we'll just talk about really fast here. John Jones, Dana White says he's going to get the winner of Francis and Stipe. No, not surprising at all, right?
No, not at all. You knew that was going to happen, especially with Blades fighting Lewis Rosenstrike.
Yeah. I thought there was a chance he could get a tune-up for a while, Cole, like against an Overeem kind of guy like that, but we know that's not going to happen. You know what? I think the UFC is like, we can't risk him like getting hurt or something or testing positive or whatever, and we got to just book him for this title fight. So, yeah, he'll probably fight the winner that I would say in the fall maybe, but, you know, it depends. I think if Francis wins, he'll be more likely to fight soon. If Stipe wins, I don't think he's going to be in a rush to get back in the octagon. I'm surprised they got Stipe to fight again this soon, Cole. It seems like he's a guy who likes to fight once a year in the summer, and now he's fighting in March. So that's pretty cool. What else, Cole? You had your article here. Dustin Poirier issues bold prediction for a rematch with Conor McGregor. What's his bold prediction again?
First round knockout.
Yeah. And it's possible. I think it's possible.
I think
people are kind of sleeping on Dustin a little bit in this fight, but we'll talk about that on Thursday. What are you going to say?
I just think the longer the fight goes, the better for Dustin. I think if you were to tell me, say someone could travel in time, they travel back, and they said that fight ends in a first round knockout, I'd say, okay, then Conor won. If you're telling me it ends in a fifth round knockout, I'd be like, oh, I kind of would lean Poirier then. But I think if it's an early finish, it's going to be Conor winning.
That's the thing. It's going to come down to that. Like, if you can't get him out the first couple of rounds, maybe round or two, if you can't, you could be in serious trouble later the fight goes. And I think Dustin has the better cardio. But again, we'll talk about that Thursday. What else? Calvin Kattar, man, the statement he made and the face, the damage. He's going to be out for a while, eh, Cole? Like, I didn't get your thoughts on that because you weren't with me yesterday with Marcel. What'd you think? Like, I saw your tweet though. You said it should have stopped after round 4, I believe.
Yeah, I thought it could have been stopped quite a bit. Even like almost every round, Kattar was going back to his corner wobbly. At what point, like, I know Kattar has a lot of power, but Max has such a good chin. Like, there was no reason for him to go back out for that fifth round, I don't think.
It's just like the Spencer Nunes fight. It was the exact same thing. Like, you didn't need to send her out for that last round where she got beaten up. And this fight was even worse. Listen, man, the fact he went the distance is admirable. I don't think anyone would have really thought any less of him and you got finished in the third round, though, you know? Like, yeah, now we know we're like, oh, Kattar's super tough, but like, I'm telling you right now, there's no fighter that wants to be known as tough. They don't want to be known as tough or having a good chin. If you're known as tough or having a good chin, you're probably getting your ass kicked in most of your fights. Now, in his case, listen, he's usually the one knocking guys out. But in this fight, I mean, Max's performance, greatest single performance in UFC history, possibly. What do you think?
It would be right up there.
Yep.
Like, that was one of the best performances I've ever seen.
Dude, 444 significant strikes landed. That's insane. The previous record was 290. So, like, he went – and I think that was him, too, against Ortega, if I'm not mistaken. So, and the fight against Dustin, I think he's third overall. Like, he's so good, man. Jamie Gidley, did you hear Calvin breathing in his corner at the end of round 4? He sounded bad. Dude, that fight – I think – was that the 10-7 round or was it the third round? I can't remember. But one of those rounds could have been, like, 10-7, and it should have been stopped. The fourth round, yeah, the fight should have been over.
I think it was the third or fourth. It's one of those middle ones.
Yeah, you're gonna talk to those guys, Calvin or Tyson, anytime soon, or
probably not anytime soon.
Okay, fair enough. Marcus, who would you favor, John Jones or Francis? I personally don't like John moving up to heavyweight, considering how he performed. That's a great question. Listen, like the odds right now, what are they? Let me take a look. John Jones, okay, Francis minus 145, Jones plus 115. I don't know. I mean, like those odds will shift depending on how the Stipe fight goes, Cole. But I'll be honest, man, I'll take John Jones at plus money.
I will pick John Jones against any single heavyweight.
I'll pick John Jones because I've never picked against him, man. Is there anyone you would pick against John Jones? Like, yeah.
I don't, because like the way I look at it is Francis Ngannou, sure, he has a lot of power. We've never even seen John Jones be rocked. Like and he doesn't get hit. I still have a lot of questions about Ngannou's takedown defense. Like, that's the thing. Like, this Miocic rematch, I don't really know how it's going to go just because the whole thing after that Miocic was Ngannou had zero takedown defense. Like, he was taken down and he had no cardio after the first round. But we haven't seen him after the first round because he knocks out everyone in a minute. So what happens once he can't get Miocic, if he doesn't get Miocic out of there in the first round? Like, then are those same questions going to be there? Like, we don't even know if Ngannou's improved at all.
And it looks like the fight with, what's his name, Derek Lewis. Or had Lewis at plus 300. I love that one. Anyways, I don't. By the way, did you see that Jones video in the helicopter? Did you see it?
No.
Dude, he's sitting in the helicopter shooting at pigs. It's pretty messed up. Like, I understand people want to hunt and kill. That's fair, but if that's what you're going to do, but not for me, man. Not for me. And the comments, people they're not too happy about it because the pig was dead and he kept shooting at it. It's kind of messed up. Anyways, what else we got here, Cole? We've got a few minutes left. What do you think? What about Matt Brown? I want to ask you about him. Think he'll fight again?
I think he will.
He's left it kind of up in the air. He said, I'm not sure yet, but he's back in the gym already.
If he won, from what I got talking to him, I think if he won, that's what his career high, and he wanted to go on that note. I think just that loss thing, he's going to get one more.
Carlos Condit, you think he re-signs with the UFC?
I think so, just because I don't really know who else would sign him. Like
PFL maybe for the welterweight tournament. That'd be cool. He could fight Rory again. That'd be nice. I'd watch that fight.
I don't really know how many fights Condit has left. Like, I wouldn't even be surprised if he calls it a career after this one too. Eventually, like a couple months, he goes, "Yeah, I'm done," or did my next fight to my retirement one. I think he ends in the UFC though.
I think he needs money, dude, because I know he had that coffee shop that went I think it didn't do too well. I could be wrong about that, but I know that I think he had some issues with that business. So I mean, listen, man. I think he'll keep fighting as long as UFC offers him fights. So I think it's called a natural born killer for a reason, right? 36 years old, so he's getting up there, Cole. But Matt Brown's 40. There's a big difference. Let me get these comments. Got a few minutes left here. Marcus, straight wager. It's a wonder that Max's performance against hasn't gained Dustin more support the window. I know different weight class fight, etc. People seem so high on Max after the weekend. I mean, how can you not be, right? But again, he's a different guy at 155. We saw the fight. Dustin didn't look the same. The power was the difference. Remember at 155, Cole, when Dustin was hitting him? The difference between getting hit by a featherweight and lightweight is huge. By the way, Calvin Kattar actually landed a lot of shots in that fight. He did quite well offensively, just the defense wasn't there at all. Jamie says that Nagano-Lewis fight was comedy gold. It sure was. Marcus, I'd like to see Condit Lawler. Sure, I'd watch that fight. Why not? That'd be fun. Why not? By the way, how is Lawler still ranked in the top 15? He is, right? I don't know how, though. He hasn't won in forever. Straight wager, Condit versus Nick Diaz. Sure, I'd watch that fight, too. Do you think they're going to announce Nate Diaz's fight this week or something? Because Dana was talking about it. What do you think they were thinking? He said not Tony, but when he said that, I'm thinking it is Tony. What do you think?
I think it's Justin Gaethje.
Gaethje, right? I think Gaethje would just leg kick him to death.
I think he would too. I don't really think Gaethje has much interest in Oliveira. That's the problem. I don't think Gaethje, Poirier, McGregor all really care about Oliveira because it's a tough matchup and it's hard to sell because he doesn't speak English. I think that's going to be such a knock on Oliveira getting these big fights. It's going to be why would McGregor took Aldo because it was for the belt. Is he really going to fight Oliveira? We can't really promote it when it's not going to be for a belt or anything. Especially when if a vacant title is Conor or Oliveira or Conor or Gaethje, fans going to get more excited for Conor Gaethje. I think they're going to do Gaethje Diaz, Conor Poirier. I think the winners fight each other.
Yeah, it's too bad Oliveira just doesn't have more support behind him because he deserves that shot at the belt, Cole. There's no doubt, but I don't know. It's crazy because he has the most submissions in UFC history. He's super exciting, but it just seems like people would rather see the other guys fight for the belt. But we'll see what happens. Habib seemed impressed for what it's worth. And by the way, worst announcement ever, right? That announcement sucked, right? It was terrible. All right. Yeah. Anything else you want to say, Cole? We got 2 minutes left.
It was literally nothing changed. He's still a maybe if he's going to fight again.
It's a joke. It was a terrible announcement. And Dana White to go and tease people and say yes, he's going to give us a yes or no answer. Come on. I mean, listen, he shouldn't have been so cocky about it. And actually, at least Dana, I saw him joke around about the press conference. John Morgan was like, "You said you're going to get a yes or no answer." He was like, "Yeah, about that." So he knew that he spoke too soon. And last question, I'm going to take your comment. I should say, Marcus, I wish Charles Oliveira took the Chandler fight. Yeah. But it was short notice against a guy who's never made his debut in the UFC yet. Why would he risk his win streak? I can see both arguments for it. All right, Cole, that's it for today's podcast. Guys, everyone, thanks for tuning in as always. Cole, please plug everything you want fans to know where you are.
Twitter at Colshell91. The show this week, it's out already. It's Dan Hooker, Michael Chiesa, Matt Frivola, Roxanne Modafferi. So stories with all them. Fighter picks for Conor, Poirier, and Chandler, Hooker. Everything else is always on my Twitter, whatever I do.
Cole's killing it. And actually, I think you'll be doing a little bit of writing at MMA Oddsbreaker coming up very soon, Cole. So that's going to be nice to see you with your writing on the site. Okay, you guys can follow me on Twitter at MMAOB as you know, podcast, MMAOddsbreaker.com, YouTube, SoundCloud, iTunes, Google Podcasts, everywhere pretty much you can find the podcast. I'm also available at bjpen.com, MMARings.net, odds.com. Have a great day, everyone. Enjoy the fights tomorrow, 9 a.m. Eastern time. So I'll be waking up with my tea and the fights. It's going to be good. And then Thursday morning, 10 a.m., UFC 257 breakdown. Have a good one, guys. Talk to you soon.